Wonderful. We are going to get started here. Day 3. I have to say, first impression of yesterday, but it wasn't as exciting as the day before. Would you agree with that? Even
100%. And I have
Yeah.
a bad thing to admit about yesterday, but 100%.
Yeah, and to be fair, yesterday Brazil was playing, so that was going to automatically be exciting for you, right? No matter what. Like today, it's USA, but objectively, it was just a more exciting day than what we had yesterday. But yesterday went a little bit more as expected. Other than let's talk about the France game, the Norway game, and then we'll talk about the Mexico game because I think they're probably the most to talk about in some ways is the Mexico game.
Yes.
But it's funny. These commentators or show hosts, Lexi Lawless, all those guys or whatever, they have it really easy nowadays. You can just ask ChatGPT, hey, tell me all the interesting things about whatever. And I don't think they're doing that. But maybe that's good. But I think that using it along with soccer knowledge, that's one thing you and I both have, that whenever we talk to somebody, whether it's Lexi Lawless or it's another club president across the country, we each have 10,000 hours plus, if not 20,000 hours of being in soccer, coaching, playing in our lives. And then you more so from, I kind of got out of full-time coaching for a living in my mid-late 20s, but you kept all the way through. You're still coaching club soccer, right? And I was off and on after the 90s. I was kind of off and on over the years coaching. What was funny is I just saw a good friend of mine who I played college ball with, who coaches in Missouri, Matt Pritchett. We bumped into him at the coaches convention a couple of years ago. He just got his B license. And I was like, wow, he's been coaching college. I got my B license back in 94. I wish I would, as I've told you, I wish I would have got my A license back then when it would have been much easier because I don't even think I could get my A license right now. And because I haven't been whatever. But all that is to say that I think using AI to kind of come up with some, like when I looked at the USA men's coach, I used ChatGPT. Tell me about that coach. I looked at it and I went, that all makes sense because that's how he's coaching the team. This is where he's coaching the team and they don't seem to be playing to his expectations, yada, yada, yada. And I have some insight on that with the Paraguay game today, I think, which is interesting. That coach, you probably know the coach of Paraguay is a very interesting character. He's more like he's one of those NFL coaches who did not play NFL football, but he's a guy who supposedly has it up here.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. So the first game of the day was, well, this is the part that will get edited out when we go to it.
Wasn't it France, Sweden?
Was it France? No, it was. Help me. No, I can say croissant all day long, but I still can't say Ivory Coast. They're the French. Tell me say Ivory Coast for me.
Coat, like a coat you put on.
Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
I have a mental block with that sometimes, but that was a very evenly matched game. I was on a call with a client yesterday while that game was going on, and there's actually an attorney. We're working on a case together, and I was like, oh, I'm getting ready to watch this game. Are you watching this game? He's Mexican heritage, so there's a good chance he's going to be into soccer because it's a part of their culture. And he texts me after we get off our meeting, oh man, Norway just scored an amazing goal. And I'm like, crap, I'm still getting caught up on the game, man. You spoiled it for me. But I told him, I said, this is an exciting game, evenly matched. I don't know who's going to win. Côte d'Ivoire. And I always pride myself on being able to phonetically pronounce French words. Apparently, I've lost my touch. But Côte d'Ivoire played really well. Game could have gone either way, right? No, seriously. When I was in college, I took French, and the teacher would ask me to read paragraphs of French to the whole teacher. I had no idea what I was saying, but he taught it. He was a German French teacher, and he taught us how to speak French phonetically. And I could read paragraphs of French. I had no idea what I was saying, but I read it beautifully.
I know. But there's some things like a word or whatever that just stick, that just don't roll right. You're like, I don't even get it. What does this? I know.
Totally.
Once you've convinced yourself that you're mentally stuck, you're stuck.
Yeah, totally. And Crystal told me yesterday, I was telling her the story about the croissant. And she goes, Dan, Danny, I had no idea that's how it was supposed to be pronounced. I never heard croissant in my whole life until you came into my life, because I was fine calling it crescent roll or I don't even know how to say it wrong. I literally can't say it wrong. I
I
have
know.
to say croissant, and my kids laugh at that. They're stuck saying croissant every time they go to croissant. They're like,
That's so fun.
yeah, it is. Anyway, all right. So, I'll just say this about Holland. They had a couple of nice goals. I said Holland because I was looking at the player Holland's name on my screen. But Norway, I'll say this about Norway. Man, they are like the funnest. They're always the funnest characters on the team, in the event, with their rowing and their Viking mentality. And they've got, if that center forward after this World Cup, if Holland doesn't get sponsorship deals that rival Pelé, because he's such a lovable character. And some of the players aren't as recognizable as him, right?
Yeah.
When you know who that is. Mbappé is a handsome fellow, but he doesn't have really unique striking features. Neither does Pulisic. Pulisic just looks like a normal guy, right? But Holland, he's got the personality, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And it's beautiful. When he scored that goal, he was off balance, just trying to get his foot on it. And oh crap, I mishit it. Oh, it went in. And then he smiled like, yeah, I scored a goal, but I've pretty much been mediocre this whole game. That was the look on his face. And it was just beautiful from that. But so that was my take on not a profound take, other than I looked at the statistics. It matched what I thought, almost dead even on everything statistically. Goal scoring opportunities were a little bit Norway's favor, but a game could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And I had another meeting later that day with a South American, and he was bummed about what happened the day before. But anyway, what was your take on the Norway game? What are your thoughts, Annie?
That's the funny thing. So let's go back to what you had said, that it wasn't quite as exciting of a day as the last 2 days even. It wasn't quite as exciting of a day. So, we're on vacation, so we spent about 4 or 5 hours at the lake, and I got sunbaked a bit. And then it's great because I'm excited because now I'm going to go home and watch one game after the other. And to be honest, there's a point where the game was entertaining. It's, what a great game. But I fell asleep because I was dying. I just fell asleep because I was dying. Because I get everything lined up, everything in a row, everything ordered, my snacks, my this, my that. I pause the game, I get ready, I put my feet up, I get in my pajamas or whatever, probably a bad move. And then I fell asleep. And one of my greatest friends, he was in my wedding, I was in his wedding. He texted me and said, take it easy on us on Sunday. And he's a Norwegian friend. And so then that spoiled it for me, but didn't spoil it for me because he is a brother. So when he texted that, I'm like, okay, Norway won apparently. And what I saw of the game was very even. I saw through the end of the first half, and the game was very even. But I cannot make much commentary on that. You just know that, again, if you stop Holland, the Netherlands are in trouble, number one. And then Oscar Bob, I think it was, had a brilliant shot, top corner, the bending early little chip bend to the top corner. And, when you get a goal here or there, and then Holland taps one, and obviously that equals 2 goals at least. You know what I mean? And so that was the bummer, is I was putting that game off to watch it. Not only that, I fell asleep. I fell asleep as in a late afternoon, early evening nap. So it was really bad. And then I got up to watch Mexico and Ecuador live. And since this game was screwed up for me, Ivory Coast and Norway, in a great way, because it was screwed up from a personal text from a friend. Since this game got screwed up for me, I'm like, I'm going to watch Ecuador and Mexico live. I already know the outcome of the other game, but I don't want this one to get screwed up because I'm watching the other game. So I can't have much comment on that. But if Norway gets 1 goal a game from someone different than Holland, that's bad news.
Yeah, no, you're right. One of my complaints about the commentators when there's 2 games going on at the same time is they talk about the other game. I'm like, dude, I'm recording that game. It's different if it's quarterfinal and 2 teams are playing at the same time, but not really. I'm trying to think of a situation. Sometimes you have 2 games going on at the same time where if this game goes this way, it impacts this game. And if this game goes this way, it impacts this game. I get it. And you probably should be watching both games at the same time in that situation. But for the most part, shut your trap. Don't talk about the other game because
Correct.
I got to record it.
Correct. And don't give updates on other games. I wish it would. I always thought this, and I'm not a technological genius, but
Yeah.
I thought they used to do something like this. Just have a little flash update, scoring update coming in 5 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
Something like that. And it's
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah, and it's not even a scoring update. It could still, it's still 0-0 in the 80th minute. It could be that. And so what happened? So let me go about that, since I utterly failed on knowing anything about Norway and Ivory Coast because I was sleeping hard. And it was even one of those that was like about a 30-minute power nap. And I don't even understand a power nap because I wake up and I'm bitter because, man, why could that have not been 2 hours? Because I'm way in the hole when it comes to getting enough sleep. And so it's like, why couldn't that have been 3 hours? You look at the clock and say, really? It was a deep nap. And it's like, how do I wake up so quickly from a deep nap? Anyway, back on task. So what they did is in 1982, West Germany and Austria played a game, and it was West Germany back then. And they intentionally tied 0-0. And since they tied 0-0, actually it might have been 1-0 West Germany. But they intentionally played horrific soccer because the games weren't played at the same time. So you could get a result intentionally that would score another team. And West Germany and Austria, it was either 1-0 West Germany, I think that's what it was, or 0-0. And that would allow both teams to make it to the next round. And they played, and even the English commentary said, this is disgraceful. This is a pathetic showing. And it was clear that those two were going to play in a manner that they both would get through. And Austria, West Germany played like that in a manner that Algeria would get through. So you would say it was a thrown game both ways. So both teams get through and they screw over Algeria. And so after 1982, they changed it where your final game in your group would be at the same time. Group A games are at the same time. Then both Group B games are at the same time. Then both group. Because, hey, Dan, so listen, if you beat me 2-1, and that's pretty complicated, right? Because that one was only like, we don't want to lose 2-0 to West Germany, and they're better than we are. But if we lose 1-0, we go through, and we hook them up, and they go through because they need a win. So that happened in 1982, and Algeria were the ones who got screwed over by it. So then if you look in the 2014 World Cup, man, the Algerians should have beaten Germany in 2014, missed a gazillion chances, and Germany were the rightful World Cup winners in 2014, but missed a gazillion chances. And part of that was, okay, here we are, almost 40 years later, time to get a revenge back on Germany. And they just missed a gazillion chances, but they could have, because, Germany and Austria, West Germany and Austria had done that to them years before. So that's why they play those games. Only the final game, the third game of the group stage. But what was that? That was 24 games. So in 24 games this World Cup, they're updating the other games. Dude, shut up.
Yeah. No, but that makes sense when I guess that makes that they're playing at the same time. They impact each other. That probably makes a little bit more sense than everything. And that's a harder one to avoid. All right. But that's insight. That's great insight. Because I always wondered about that, because how do you not do that as a team? Go into a game saying, if I beat you 1-0, we both go through, right? And we get rid of Algeria, who's the third, maybe they're the next strongest team in our bracket. We don't want them to go through. We want the weaker team to go through to make everything easier. Or you could say, we want the stronger team to go through, so they beat up on Brazil in the next round. And 100%. Then when we play Brazil will be beat up. So that makes sense. Thanks for educating me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, the France game. I'll just say, I think I got 2 major points on the France team. One is, talk about Sweden. Sweden hung in there for a while, and it looked like they might hold on and might get lucky. But it still looked inevitable most of the game that France was going to win, unless they just had one of those games. I wouldn't even say Sweden did a good job defensively of packing it in and stopping France from scoring, because the truth is, France hit the word work over and over again and had like all these chances. So it wasn't like they even did a good job stopping France, right? They were outclassed from the beginning. They looked young. They looked like they had like they all looked like they were shell shocked from as you went through the game. I even saw towards started the second half. I see France is maybe they've got like, I'll just give you one example. There was one point where I felt like they had a 4-on-4 attack, maybe even a 5-on-4 attack that they were building quickly to try and score. And I saw a midfielder from Sweden jogging back, and he was only 5 yards out of position, maybe. So just a quick sprint would have got him behind the defender, and then he could have relaxed a little bit, right? But instead, he just so they looked defeated. They looked shell-shocked. Their keeper got a lot of practice in, which is good for him because I hear he plays in a lower division in England, or maybe the championship division.
Yeah,
so
championship,
he's not that low. I mean, still a good division. Who am I saying?
Yeah.
But the striking thing to me was at one point in the game, my eyebrows went up because Mbappé was like, okay, we're freaking scoring now. And he got the ball, and it was one time, it wasn't a good opportunity, but he just got the ball maybe at the top of the defensive third of Sweden and just drove down the middle and took a shot from way too far out where he probably wasn't going to score. But it was a mental switch in his head and where he went. And I've played games, certainly not against a team like Sweden or France, but where you're like, dude, we should be beating these guys. Let's just freaking do it and stop dicking around. And I think that momentum, he's thinking, we hit the post, we're outplaying these guys. Let's stop making excuses and let's just put the damn ball in the goal. And he had this great little move on this side, this little step over. What I love about that step over is he did the outside. They call it the scissors. I call it the outside step over where you fake with the outside. He faked to the right, and then he went to the right. And I've done that before, and it confuses the defender because you do a lame move faking to your right. And he's, I know he's going to his left now. And then you go to your right, and it beats the defender because you tricked him with your move, because you do a double negative. I don't know what the word is. But then he had a nice shot that bent it in, and then it was just over for Sweden after that. They were outclassed, outplayed, out physical, the physicality. They just didn't have a chance. And France didn't play a really beautiful possession type game, I don't think, but they just were very direct and went after it and buried them. But that was kind of my take. And that impresses me when a player like Mbappé, and that's what scares me about Mbappé, playing against that team, no matter who you are, is that if he decides he's going to make it go down, he's not going to mess around. He doesn't care if he does it pretty. He doesn't care if he does it ugly. He is going to make it happen. Whereas if I contrast that with Neymar sometimes would be like, I'm going to make it happen, but first I have to rainbow this guy. Or I'm going to make it happen by dribbling 5 guys in the box, which is a low 100% happening. 100%. So Mbappé, wow, what a guy to have on your team. I see why he's such a threat and respected around the world. But that was my quick take on the France-Sweden game.
Yeah. My take here, if it's to be holistic, can be brutal. But it's up to you.
Oh, be brutal. Be whatever, man. I want to hear it.
We
don't need a boring podcast. We need something interesting.
Correct. Here's what's tough. So let's say it's 3v3.
Yeah.
When their 3 players are all way faster and quicker than you, you're in trouble. Yeah. And what you saw there is it's 11 on 11. I don't know why I'm holding up 10 fingers. Let's say 10 on the field.
Because the goalkeeper didn't count.
Correct. That's funny, yeah. When 9 of the 11 fastest players on the field are French, if not 10 of the 11, I'm going to say Elanga and Lindelof of Sweden are Lindelof's surprisingly fast, but he's older and he's a defender now. He's not going to score a goal. So he's not going to score a goal. He's fast in a defensive manner. When 10 of the 11 players on the field, fastest players, like here are the 22 fastest, and the 9 or 22 players, and the 9 to 10 slowest are Swedish, you're in trouble. And I'm going to say this, which from France is truly African players coached in a French system.
Yeah.
And that's true. And so you say Mbappe, that's the name we all hear, but everyone knows Barcola, Doué and Olise, and a lot of them, they're even not born in France, if that makes sense. And I know this sounds hard to say, but it's just a fact. When I watch a World Cup, I don't want to watch club soccer. When I watch club soccer, I want to see the foreign guy we bought from another country.
Yeah.
But when I watch a national team, I want to see a national team.
Yeah.
And this sounds hard to say. I am saying it as nicely as I can, but that's a fact. And so when you see France, they are so much faster. It's a collection of literally colonies and countries that are from hundreds of years back, in which there's a guy from Congo, a guy from Senegal, a guy from all the island nations. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And so it makes it tough because truly you have a selection of not only French players, but then you add on 9 or 10 African countries and a bunch of island nations or colonies. And suddenly it's not France. These are the best French players from a country of 65 million. These are the best players of places around the world that France colonized of about 500 million. Do you see what I mean? And then you look at Sweden, and Sweden, you do see it's, hey, it's 65 degrees out. I am melting because I am from Sweden. You see a lot more of that, if that makes sense. So the tough thing is, what you said is totally true. I'm like, man, I hope Sweden scores first. Just so that they can lose 3-1. Just so can they get the half? And then late at half, I was like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy watching this game if he gets the halftime 0-0. Because there will be changes made by the French manager at halftime. And the Swedish manager will be like, okay, can we get an extra player on the field? And so it would have made it interesting. But the other thing is, I don't care if you need 11 people in your 6-yard box. Finish the last minute of the first half, nothing. But it's easier to say than do.
Did they get scored on in the first half? Did Sweden?
Yeah, it was the last minute of the first half. Mbappé scored a low far corner. And at that point, there's no number 9s or center forwards. There's nothing. Everybody come and stand inside our 6-yard box. Just survive this last minute and added time, if that makes sense. Because with Sweden, what you said is true. Could the ball deflect off of a sprinkler head that no one stepped on yet, that hasn't gone down from the sprinkling before the game? Can it deflect off a sprinkler head and bounce in the French goal? That was literally it. There's a saying that I love. We as people all know, hope is everything. But there's a saying that I love. Coaches, hope is not a tactic. I hope we can kick it up to Billy and Billy can outrun everybody. Hope is not a tactic. You need to have a true game plan that's logical and can make sense, and that's using the strengths of the people you have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and as much as maybe Sweden played a strategy where they played low pressure, they didn't look super organized defensively.
They did not.
You have to, if you're going to play defensively, it's like when I told you that story yesterday about we had a strategy to play defensively in that indoor game when we were playing against Lowenbrow, right? And we knew, okay, that means we're pressure cover, we're impact, and we're blah, 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 blah. It was a whole team of coaches. We knew what the heck we were doing. And I want to go back to, I told you before, this isn't a disparagement. It's just an acknowledgement of the change of the world, which is beautiful in so many ways. But historically, what I loved about the World Cup, to your point, is watching the different cultures. I knew if I saw an African team playing, man, they were going to be super physical, athletic. They were going to manhandle you because they are some of the biggest, strongest, fastest players. But they didn't grow up in like a system, like a French system or a Spanish system or a Cruyff system, right? They did not grow up in a system, even the English system or an English culture where you've got 6 tiers, a bajillion tiers of professional. And so when you take these great athletes and you put them in a system, because it's not that they're not smart enough to play smart soccer. We all know that. It's that they didn't grow up in a system to play brilliant soccer, right? And the Africans are catching up. My goodness, like you said, 9 out of 10 teams are in the, but you rarely see an African team play a very beautiful possession-based team like Spain or like the U.S. has been playing in this tournament. very few teams have been playing very pretty soccer this tournament. It's been a lot of back and forth in some of the games I've seen the last couple of days. I would say that Spain and U.S. right now are the teams I've seen possess the ball kind of the most, for better or worse. Doesn't mean that doesn't win you the game, but yeah. So that makes sense. France has got a great system of coaching. Africa is kind of evolving out of that street soccer, which is beautiful, which is why they terrify me, because you're playing Nigeria. U.S. has always gotten their butt kicked by Ghana. I don't know if we've ever beat Ghana. We might be better than them tactically. We might have better development programs from them. But at one point, a Ghanaian player manhandles a U.S. guy, makes a cross, and they knock it in. That's what I've seen happen in the last few World Cups. So you and I have talked about that. And the other thing is you see, because Henry, for example, even though they may not have been born in that country or whatever, they love their country. They're like, I am French. That just like everybody in America, and we are a true melting pot. For some reason, we don't have any Native Americans on our team, right? Yeah. but boy, that would be cool. But yeah, so the melting pot thing is cool, but it's also different. And the only teams you see that are kind of pure their culture now could be Russia, which is not in it. Some of the Arab nation teams, right? The Asian teams. They are. Daniel Tosh had a funny joke years ago. He goes, people want the Olympic team to be diverse. He goes, you know who's playing on the Chinese Olympic team? A Chinese person, right? It's like, it's Chinese, it's Japanese. So the beautiful thing about World Cup is that you do see those different cultures, and we've talked about that. So and anyway, not a lot to talk about of that game other than it went down as it should have gone down, except for France took a while to start scoring. But even then, they made it happen. Talking about the last game, and then we'll get on to our thing for today. There's not even a ton to say about this game, except for it was ugly. Mexico and Paraguay was an ugly game. It was rarely that more than 3 or 4 passes were put together. It was like constant chaos and bumping into each other. And Mexico, especially right out of the gate, created how many chances in the first 5 or 10 minutes, because they were very good at knocking the ball around in the attacking, 18-yard line, right? They were outside, across, inside. They created so many chances that you're like, wow, Paraguay's holding on. If they can get out of this first 15 minutes, maybe they have a chance. But they are getting outclassed.
Ecuador's holding on.
Ecuador, sorry. I kept saying Paraguay, sorry. So Mexico, Paraguay, Ecuador. But Ecuador just looked horrific from start to finish. They could not connect 3 passes most of the game. Their long balls were like, oh yeah, a good effort. I'm like, it wasn't a good effort. He's hit it way too hard with no backspin. It just bounced out of bounds. That was a horrible effort. And they looked like a bad 3v3 team, just whacking the ball down the field. Was going to have no chance on
a field that's
scoring.
too tight.
Yeah. So I'll say one more thing about Mexico is, and Mexico did this a lot. They took shots, maybe 4 or 5 shots from distance, but just skied them up. And I'm like, dude, low and hard. It has no chance of going in if you sky it over the goal. Hit it low and hard so it skips on the grass, so it has a chance of hitting somebody to go in. But their attackers, my biggest criticism, when they took a hard shot, boom, it was like they were kicking field goals. But yeah, Ecuador, and you said this yesterday, Ecuador did look, this is one more point I want to make, and then I want to shut up and hear what you have to say about Ecuador. You said Ecuador was going to be more athletic, bigger, stronger, and they were. If you just looked at them, you know how I know they were? Because every one of their horrific corner kicks they took, where they had a scrum in front of the goal, I was like, that's like what you do when you're a horrible coach and you're coaching a U11 competitive, and you just think somehow the ball's going to bounce off someone and go in the goal. So you just put all your players right in front of the goalkeeper and knock it in. After the 10th time, it felt like that didn't work. You think he would change the strategy of, hey, let's start out maybe at the penalty kick. So we're coming forward when that ball goes into that area. But most of the time, I think that Ecuadorian coach, who's Argentinian, the guy I talked about, who I don't think did a good job of organizing his team. He didn't live up to his reputation of organizing the team he's had for 2 years. He didn't live up to his reputation of developing young players because they looked like deer in the headlights most of the game. They were nervous. They weren't composed. But my goodness, you got their best chance was probably a dozen corner kicks that they had. And they were the worst corner kicks I think I've seen in the whole tournament.
Yep.
And most of them, the goalkeeper, guess what? The goalkeeper is, even if your players are a head taller than the other team, the goalkeeper is 3 heads taller. Why? Because he can reach up. Crystal said he can use his hands. My fiance Crystal said he can use his hands. So just a horrible game by Ecuador. And I don't know if it was an off day. But the players, their first touches were too heavy, right? Every time, even they intercept a pass, that touch is too heavy. It goes right back to Mexico, even when they make a good interception. It was just horrific. So that's really all there is to say about the game, I think. Yeah. And I'll say one more thing about the coach. The coach wears his heart on his sleeve, total emotional guy, for good, better or worse. Some things about it I don't like. I prefer the cool, calm, and collected coach for Brazil and the U.S. Even the Mexican coach is pretty steady. Yeah, he resigned. Ecuador resigned right after the game. And it's like, dude, just take a moment on something. Anyway, so that was my whole assessment of the Ecuador game. It wasn't much soccer being played.
Yeah. So here's the other thing that, just being honest, right? It sounds like it might be rude, but let's be truthful on it, right? Yeah. I was wrong on both counts. I said that Ecuador would be much more athletic, and they are more athletic. But Mexico was so dominant, so structured, that actually the Mexican player had taken 2 steps before the Ecuadorian reacted. They were conjointed, if that's the word. Is that the word? Disconjointed? Discombobulated for sure. And from the beginning. And they were blown away from the beginning. And they went down 2-0. Now, I believe they had the #1 defensive record in South American qualifying, in CONMEBOL qualifying. They could defend. And I think I said on the podcast yesterday, I don't even know how, but I predicted that Ecuador would win. I said, I don't even know how they're going to score, but I'm going to say they're going to get a goal somehow and then score with this speed and athleticism on a counterattack. And I said they would win. Mexico, that was maybe in a way that was the best team they've played in theory, but man, they came out and they had a stinker. So again, who knows? But I was wrong on both accounts. Here's the second one I was wrong on, but I think people have to admit.
Let me say this. You weren't wrong about the fact that Ecuador has a history of being very strong defensively. And if you're calling that game and you're looking at that fact, and they're a South American team with a strong defensive record, that means they've defended well against Brazil. They've defended well against Argentina. They defended against rock stars, right, of soccer nations. So your prediction was strong there. So Mexico, how are they going to break down a team that Brazil can't break down, that Argentina can't break down? Right?
100%. 100%.
So it was probably factually right, but that's why we played the game, right? And that's why Ecuador has an off day that was horrific.
Correct. It was in theory, let's say. And the other thing I said, I don't know if you remember, is I actually called, don't be surprised if you see 1 or 2 red cards. And early on, even one announcer referred back to commentators saying, hey, expect 1 or 2 red cards in this game, perhaps.
Yeah.
And you saw it early on. Early on, it was building up. But there's a point where either you're just getting cold revenge, or dude, we're going home. I want a good shower before we go home. Today is not our day. We are not on. But if you saw, it was dramatic. The shoulder to shoulder where the Mexican player was knocked out of bounds. I think it was Jimenez was knocked out of bounds. He was off of his feet already. And it was very dramatic, his fall on. And then suddenly everyone breaks up. And the worst thing, if you're Mexico and you have the lead, the worst thing, having the lead, is to get your players fighting and to get your players passionately getting into everything and wanting to battle or what have you. You know what I mean? You don't want this passionate kicking. We're up 2-0. Be calm. It's 2-0. But you saw it almost turn into a brawl, and both benches came onto your screen immediately. Do you remember that? It happened right near the half. Here's the half, right here, right? And both teams came like this, the whole benches. And I would be like, dude, if your butt gets off that bench again, you are not going to play in this World Cup, because what we don't need is to give any passion to the other team. Here's an example. Let me just go back to this. When Brazil played Japan, they asked a young Brazilian player who's brilliant, brilliant. They asked the young Brazilian player, who's 19, hey, who are some of the Japanese players? Now, Brazilian commentary on it said that was inappropriate. I think it was a Japanese journalist said, who are some of the Japanese players that that could be dangerous and all? And he said it, and it sounds bad because he's young. He said, man, I don't even know their names. I don't know their names. And he's not trying to be rude, but it sounds like smack talk.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of Brazilians were like, and I'm going to say somewhere like, you don't ask that. It's smack talk then.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's a legitimate question. But I think what he's saying is, you know what? Our guys play for Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and Barcelona, and Liverpool. Their guys are great players. I don't know where they play. And their names are way different sounding than our names. But when he said it and he's 19, it was great. It's like this. We're just talking. But he's in front of a microphone, in front of millions and millions of people. He's like, man, I don't know their names.
Yeah. And he's a young guy, so he didn't know how to be diplomatic and say, I'm not too familiar with the team, but I have had to watch film over the last couple of days. And boy, they've got some strong players. Yeah,
they play a beautiful collective game. They knock the ball well. They play so beautifully. Absolutely. And so I would say this, Ecuador, in the end, you'd think losing to Mexico and Mexico makes sense.
Yeah.
Because Mexico's good. Mexico and the Azteca, holy moly. And not only that, they can take the altitude. Last night, I don't know if you heard, they were talking about the altitude and they just got in late and whatever. Dude, their main stadium's at 9,300, 9,200, 9,400 feet. They can take 7,000 feet or 6,500 feet. So
funny is even Crystal knew that. She didn't know anything about soccer, really. She's learning soccer. She loves soccer. She always has, but learning a lot watching this World Cup. And she goes, what's that guy saying? Ecuador is really high elevation. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. He's an English guy. I don't think he didn't know anything about North and South America.
Correct. And so he's talking, and that's exactly what you said. Or what we talked about is the commentators. It's such general statements, because you figure when you're playing at 6,500, 7,000 feet, you're like, oh, this poor visiting team. But you don't have enough knowledge actually of this game to know that. Actually, Ecuador, the main stadium they play in is at 9,000 plus feet. They're okay. And so I would say that Ecuador would be one of my three teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, Germany and the Dutch, that are like the biggest upsets so far this World Cup, let's say. And you probably have to say Turkey. So those four teams, Turkey, Germany, maybe Holland, you've got to say, and Ecuador, are the four biggest flops of the World Cup so far. And the tough thing with the Dutch is they're playing Japan. They're playing the Swedes that I thought would give them a better game because they're big, powerful teams, let's say.
Sweden has a history of soccer. They have a history of doing well in the World Cup on occasion. They're a soccer nation. Yeah. They just got a bunch of young players now, and it looked like they had a bunch of young players.
Yeah, correct. So it wasn't an exciting day of games yesterday. It was a day of games. I'll take that every day of my life. It was a day of games, but it wasn't exciting.
No, I could get in trouble with Mexico for saying this. But what I've always loved about Mexico, creative, technical, they've got like this South American style of playing, their Central America style, but you're an attractive team to watch in a lot of ways. I played on Mexican teams over the years, amateur teams, that kind of thing. So loads of respect for them from as far as being a soccer nation or whatever. But the emotional maturity of that team historically has been one of the lowest I've seen. And what I mean is two things. When they get touched, they roll around like Neymar. It's like a whole team full of Neymars, right?
Correct.
And that nothing annoys me. I'll say that about Neymar. And it's the biggest annoyance about Neymar. And I love it when a player does this. In Mexico and Neymar are not the only players to do this. But when they fall down, they're like, ah, and then they take a minute to look up like this to see if the referee's looking at them, like a 3-year-old, like a 3-year-old kid who's lying and trying to see if you can see that he's lying, right? And
Yes.
so
Oh, yes.
they look at the ref and then they go, oh, the ref's not looking at me. Oh, now he's looking at me. Oh, it's like watching a 5-year-old. And not all Mexican players. And I think the guys that end up going and playing in Europe mature a bit, right? But man, they whine and cry like babies when they get touched. They make a meal out of, like yesterday, there were times they didn't even get touched and you would have thought they broke their leg. And the replay, you see that. But then they dish it out as bad as as 100%. Much as they whine and cry about not getting touched, but looking like they getting touched. And then not only that, they're hacks. Like they aren't afraid to hack you from behind, elbow punch, kick. They act like they're still 10 years old. They act like they're still 10 years old, playing on the streets of Mexico, and they have not grown out of that. And I'm not disparaging them personally, because I know that when I step on the field, I don't want to be judged by my worst moment on the field, right?
No.
But it's 11 Neymars. I'm slamming Brazil.
Let me give you
go ahead.
3 points about that. So let's just say this. It's not Mexico. That's your experience with Mexico. I agree. It's Latin soccer. Now, let me offend everybody from Mexico down to Chile and Argentina, right? Let me offend everybody in that way. It's very much Latin soccer, and in Spanish, you'd call it malicia. Portuguese, you'd call it malandro. Italian, Fabio Furbo. And it's dark arts. And they love the dark arts, and they know the dark arts. But an example, watch Latino teams do this. This is a fact. They'll pat your face like they're showing you affection. Face is that's where I touch my wife before I kiss her. You know what I mean? And so this in Latin men, when you're friends, you'll kiss on the cheek. Women, you'll kiss both cheeks. But we're talking men in battle here. And so they'll pat you on the face and they'll do it with affection. But then when they play, they'll just a little harder and whatever, or they'll grab you here and you'll shake. And that's something that's just meant to offend and condescend the other person. So you watch Latin teams play, and there's a lot of this, and the other guy will do that. Hey, you know what? We greeted each other before, but now it's blood. So you'll see that. Now,
which is passive. That's basically being passive aggressive and trying to. There's a lot of gamesmanship. And by the way, you and I disagree on this, because I hate it when any forward takes a dive. And I remember you telling me you justified that. You're like, yeah, you might hate me taking a dive. I hate it when a defender, when the referee's not looking, scrapes his cleats against my Achilles tendon. And so you're saying the defenders do stuff overtly to try. It's harder to do that nowadays with all the cameras.
It is. But it is. But you can't even talk like this.
Yeah, and now so even though I don't like it, and I remember in college I was in a scrimmage game before the season, and one of our defenders, it was an inter-squad match, split tackled me and got the ball, and I fought to stay on my feet and get a shot off. And he came up to me and said, Danny, you should have dove. And I was like, dive? Are you kidding me? That's against everything I believe in. So I'm like this person who completely doesn't believe in any of that. And the Latin culture is in the gamesmanship. How do we do this? And they're not the only ones. You're everywhere around the world.
It's different in many ways. So what I was saying is this. Let me go ahead and offend from Mexico all the way down to the bottom tip of South America. But then let me go back on the Brits here. So then what happens is the world is now small. And so Europeans dive as much as anybody on the planet. They dive. So the world dives now. Now, maybe it was brought there by South America, except, you know what else was brought there by South America? Extreme technical abilities and bicycle kicks and rainbows and
creativity.
And creativity was brought there too. So let's say you get the bad with the good. Okay, but the next thing is this, where I will rip the English and the Brits, and this is a fact, is that they said for about 7 to 10 years, they would use the verbiage that their player went down easy. So South Americans, they dive, like diving is the worst word you could use. It's the blank word, right? And then they'd say, oh no, he just went down easy. And it's okay. So we've just created a new category for diving. But so I remember they would say, Rooney, he went down easy, but Ronaldo, he dove. And it's okay. You know what that's called? That's called moral relativism. Like our dive isn't really a dive because we have a stiff upper lip and we play honest. And so I remember them saying that and squeezing that into, and I don't know if you remember hearing that, but that phrase
Yeah.
is not said anymore. But it was said for 7 to 10 years nonstop. And I think officially now we know that the Brits, they dive. Everybody dives.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I don't support it.
And by the way, you know who's diving worse and more obvious than just about any sport on the planet now, which makes me sad.
Bas-
But
Yes.
you're LeBron James. You're
Yes.
8 feet tall.
Yes.
And it looks like you got hit and you died.
Yes. And who do they blame it on? Manu Ginobili, an Argentine.
Oh, really?
That's who they blame it on. Manu Ginobili, who played for the San Antonio Spurs. They blame it on Manu Ginobili, a South American who came and he dives and everything else. That's who they blame it on. But it's okay. He was also 220 pounds lighter than LeBron James, right? who, like you said, he dives and whatever. So the other thing I would say is, so where the Brits started saying we went down easy and South Americans dive, what you had quoted me on before, Dan, is true. And I say now I'm going to break it up. Let me be my moral relativist here. I'm going to break it up. Part of that, too, I was saying is this. There's 2 different types of dives to me. Okay, so now I'm breaking it up. Oh, he went down easy, South American dove. There's 2 different types of dives. If I get you to lunge your leg out, I have a choice. I can go ahead and run through your leg and then fall. I initiated contact, or you didn't really do anything. I can just not even contact, just fall and dive. But if I can make you lunge your leg out, it's my choice. Do I benefit from staying on my feet because now I'm in shooting range and everything? Or is there another defender or 2 there and I don't benefit? But I have your leg lunged out. I may as well just run over your leg and take the foul. Does that make sense? So
no, I saw a Mexican player do that last night. He was going down the right side. And to be fair, he was like 50 yards away from the goal. And I felt like he made the wrong decision because he had open space in front of him. He would have at least gotten 20 yards further down the field and been able to make a
100%.
cross. And it was towards the end of the game. Maybe he was tired. The guy stuck his leg out and he did exactly what you're talking about. He initiated contact and looked like he fell. Yep.
And you add to that. I know I go nuts. I love it when, here's an example. We're up 1-0 or we're up 2-0. Late in the game, 2-1, 1-0. And we have a chance to get further down the sideline, but there's only 1 minute left to play. Take the free kick.
Yeah.
Because that's possession without being tackled. That's possession without losing the ball. That kills 35, 40, 45 more seconds. So then we could stay going. You're about to hear a beautiful train in the background, which is cool. We stay right on a train at our bed and breakfast here. Yeah. Anyway, and so at that point, dude, why stay on your feet?
Yeah.
Take the time. So are we taking the time or are we taking the chance? The chance creating. That's that's going to be experienced there. It's like, he crossed the ball and they're up 2-1. He crossed the ball and hoping to make it 3-1. Yes, but there's 1 minute left on the clock. Go to the corner flag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not only that, I say go to the corner flag, sure, but it's, hey, kick it off them, get a throw in.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? So there's so much to think about, but I will say this. I think I'm a little limited in how much I dove in the past, actually, as far as non-contact. Because to me, and it's funny, let's say what I just said, oh, we go down easy. No, there's no contact. That's just a straight up brutal dive. Latinos, they dive. To me, I don't know. There's just a level that I don't go to where I fall with no contact. I will always make sure there's contact. And my thing is this, it's your fault. Because you put yourself in a precarious situation where now you gave me the choice. Actually try to run by you or take the time off the clock. And does that make sense? And so
it becomes more of a tactic, a strategy, and a choice. And at least there's contact. I have appreciated, I loved it when our player was given a yellow card. And I think the first game down in the corner, our central defender, the big guy is 38 years old. He was given a yellow card for taking out, I think, one of the
Ream, right? Ream, yeah.
Yeah. And then the replay, it showed He didn't touch the guy at all, and he completely dove with no contact at all. And they reversed it with VAR and gave him a yellow card.
I think that's
And
brilliant.
I think there's got to be more of that, because I honestly, where I would have a hard time diving if I were a professional player on TV all the time, is the next day, all these videos. I think the soccer community does a bad job of calling players out for doing that.
100%.
I think you should have a highlight film the next day. Here's all the guys who had no integrity and they just dove, who weren't touched. And they're undermining the game. I think they should be thrown under the bus. I think the whole next day, there should be a 30-minute video of here's all the players who undermined the integrity of soccer because they pretended that they were touched and they weren't even touched. And I think if you did that, in other words, I'm for shaming the shit out of them.
And you know what's funny about that? In Brazil, people don't know this. People are all Brazilians. Come on. You cannot judge English, Mexican, Brazilian. We're saying these are tendencies that come from these areas. Period. That's a factor. Everybody. In Brazil, they call Neymar, which is fall. Mr.
Wow,
Fall.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
hate it.
Yeah.
Do something, man. Now, I also remember this. When we left Brazil long time ago, I remember that if you're down a goal, in my mind, I'm not saying this was universal in Brazil or national, not quite universal, but full across Brazil. In my mind, I remember I played with the tactic of, man, we're not breaking down this team. Get into my free kick distance, 24, 26, 27 yards out in this gap. Get into my free kick distance, make contact, and get a free kick, if that makes sense. Now, then everything's so gray, right? Then there's different contact. Dude, he just ran into him. But if I get you, and I can't show it on the screen, to lunge to your left, and now your leg is diagonally across like that, 3 feet, I'm just going to run over your shin and fall, right? And you know what? Okay, that's not great defending on you, and you should be punished for it.
Yeah.
Now, in playing to get this, right?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we all have that gray line and that moral relativity, like I said, whatever. And I won't go deep into this. I'll just say one thing, okay? Which is very bad. I was coaching a team of U15 girls, and now they had all gone off to college, and it was incredible. We wound up meeting for a coffee back in Denver, and there was myself and 5 of the girls that I had coached before, and it was the coolest thing in the world. And we started talking about morality, and I'm going to say this. One of the girls went, I'm going to show you something really cool in a sec, okay, Dan? Classic historical train was on TV, Western movies and all. It's coming by us in just a sec in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And so she went, and she had gotten enlightened in college, and she had learned and I would say that she had learned that there's no such thing as right and wrong.
Yeah.
But she has a younger brother. And I'm like, and I started talking about things, and I started talking about adults and kids. And she was saying no to everything I said, no to everything I said, no to everything I said. Then I put a name on it, and I put a face on it. I said, this is your younger brother. And this is a 48-year-old mother who left, and her younger brother was 12. And she's like, I'm like, everybody draws a line at something. So we need to draw a line. You and I go one level shadier than you, perhaps. If I can get you to make contact, I'm not going to have a hernia trying to stay up. Go ahead and take the free kick. But then I do believe that it's artistic to get the guy to get in a weird physical position so I can get the free kick. But to just dive when it is humanly impossible for a referee and 2 referees assistant, linesmen, it is humanly impossible for them to see everything.
Yeah.
And these are guys who are
at full speed.
26 years old. They're 26 years old, world-class athletes. You're a great athlete, but you're 37, and you're 1, and they're 22.
Yeah.
At that point, there's such a thing as mercy. And I think the players on the field have to have the mercy of saying, being a ref, we've heard it, it's a thankless job.
Yep. Yep.
It's a thankless job. So
Yep.
I know that sounded shady and we went way off the path there. That's
No.
something when Latinos play, it is always a derby, right? So for some people who don't know, their derby is the two local big teams fighting each other. It is always a derby. And when Latinos play, they know that malicia, malandro, fabio furbo, all that street smart dark arts, baby, it's all in play.
Yeah, it's almost.
And I can give you a bad
say,
story of myself, a really bad story if you want. It's exposing my insides. I can give you a bad story if you want, but it was street smart.
Let's move on. I will say that U.S. Mexico is the derby, right?
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah, it is. When they
Our players could play for any of the two countries.
Yeah, so many. Yeah, so it is. And so, all right, so let's talk about today's games. And let's see. Let's see, who do we got here? Oh, where did I put it? Oh, geez. World Cup Soccer. Let's see.
This is
Who's
what
playing today?
happens when you're on vacation for a few days. So let me show you guys this. It's a historic game. So as you look it up, then, it's a historic train. And these are the famous Black Hills. And as the train comes around this corner, I will zoom off of my face and show you guys how beautiful the view out of my front doorstep is. Okay, let me just go over here. You're going to see it soon, okay?
Yeah.
Tell me when you see it, because it's behind me. You're looking up the scores. I will show you this. It was on, if you guys have heard of Gunsmoke, the famous Western. Oh, man. It's coming. It's coming. You guys can hear? Can you hear Dan or no?
We can't. Can you hear my dog barking in the background?
No. So this is great. People can't hear it.
Yeah.
Because it's noisy, but it's pretty historical. So what is the first game? Is it Bosnia, U.S.?
No, that's the last game of the day. Hold on. I'm going to have it right here in 2 seconds. Blah, blah, blah. Pull it up. And it's funny because, okay, we've got, no, wait. Okay, man, I'm having okay, here we go. All right, it's coming up. So,
I'm hoping you can see this soon.
Okay, yes, we got England versus Congo.
DR Congo, yeah.
DR Congo in Atlanta. Belgium versus Senegal. And United States versus, obviously, Bosnia. That's the one I'm going to be in. In fact, we got a game starting in 45 minutes. England, to me, if we're looking at the games for today, starting up with the England versus Congo, I know Congo has had a pretty good showing in the World Cup. England's been, and maybe they've overachieved or just achieved because African teams are doing very well. But England's been inconsistent to me, and I don't know why. But yeah, they've been kind of inconsistent, but they're definitely, like I say this, why does a country like Ghana not have that has a very athletic population, right?
And skillful.
A good, skillful population. Why don't they dominate in the NBA, for example? Because NBA is not part of their culture. Basketball is not a huge part of their culture. Some part of the people play basketball all over the world, but it's not the dominant sport in their culture. And why does Canada dominate in hockey? Do they have a huge population? Do they have the best athletes on the planet to choose from? They do not. It's because hockey is part of their culture. And so you are going to play hockey and curling. By the way, your curling. Second favorite sport, which is ridiculous to me, but anyway.
I love it.
But you can't help, if you're in England, and you're not an aristocrat, you are playing freaking soccer. And you are playing every day on the street. They have a bajillion professional leagues. Throughout our history of coaching, you get a guy from England who comes over, and I played pro in England. Yeah, he played pro in England, which was the 8th division, you know, for whatever team. But so their culture of football, soccer, in fact, they called it soccer for the longest time. their culture is very centered around soccer. Canada is for hockey, right? And if Canada had a bigger population, if there was a lot more money in Canada, everybody would go to Canada to play soccer, not the US. Yeah, that would be the place where it happened. And as it stands, everybody would go to Canada to play hockey. I meant to say, not the US. They would go to Canada. So England has this culture. They can't help but generate great players because they're going to make the most. They're not a huge country. They're going to make the most of the talent that they have there. And so I think that's one reason they're always a powerhouse is because of that. So anyway, so they've been inconsistent. They expect they can win. I don't know much about Congo, but what are your thoughts on that game?
Congo's an example. I believe Aubameyang was from there and Lukaku were from there. These are two big guys who made it in Europe, phenomenal players who imagine if they were playing for DR Congo and Congo got through. So back when it was called Zaire in 1974, in the West Germany World Cup, Congo played, did really well. Brazil got to a point where Brazil had to beat Congo 3-0 by 3 goals in order to get through to the next round. And actually, Brazil came second in their group then, which is weird because they've been first in their group since 78 and always first in their group. That's why I thought that this year maybe Brazil was going to come second in their group and they managed to come first. DR Congo, back when they were called Zaire, they actually were pretty naive. They were in the World Cup in 74 and they were pretty naive to some of the rules even. And when Brazil had a free kick, there's a famous moment where Brazil's got a free kick. Zaire makes a wall. The ref blows the whistle. And before the Brazilian goes up to hit the ball, because he's having one last look at the wall and where he's going to put the ball, a player from the wall, from Congo's wall, Zaire's wall back then, leaves the group, like here's the wall, leaves, runs up and kicks the ball away before the Brazilian hits the free kick. He goes, what is that? And that was 1974. And so now you look at it, and what is this, 52 years later? Am I getting my math right? 52 years later, and now they're called DR Congo, and they've done great. I'm actually pretty surprised, but happy for them. I don't know a lot about them. I know they've got a gazillion guys who have left, played for European nations, and thus lost a lot of talent. But think about this. If you lost as much talent as they did to going and playing in Belgium, going and playing in France or whatever other country,
Yeah.
if you lost as many talented players as Congo, just for Congo to make it as a third place team into the final 32 of the World Cup is phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I think that this isn't much of a prediction, will either utterly flop today, or what I hope is if they are focused and they stay on task, I think they can really frustrate England.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it's an open venue, again, not a roof covered, let's say, if it's an open venue and you're talking about a 1 o'clock kickoff or whatever it is, it's an open venue. You know what? Congo, stay on task, keep the score 0-0, take your moment when you can. They could frustrate England. I really believe that.
Yeah.
In England,
They're going to have the physicality. They're going to, unlike Sweden, who looked like they got bullied and manhandled by France.
Yeah.
England's going to have a harder time maybe manhandling Congo
100%.
team. Yeah.
100%. And, you know, if it gets the heat, let's be honest, which one's hotter?
I just
Congo.
checked. They're going to close the roof in Atlanta and they're going to play in air conditioning.
Okay. Which is good for England. Let's just say this. It's 0-0, 30 minutes in an open stadium in Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know what? England better score when they can score, right? So I just hope that Congo keep it tight, keep it close, just get out of the half. And I believe England's going to win it in the end.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Congo score a goal and just make it exciting. And I feel bad. What I'm saying is something I wouldn't have said in the past. What I hate is when somebody says, I just hope that they score a goal against Brazil. Shut up. Now I'm saying it about England. I hope Congo scores the goal. Yeah. And part of the thing that drives me nuts, again, I'm going to say is how many African players now play for English nations where if they played for how many of these African countries would be that much better? Oh. They would be that much better. Do you see what I mean? It's like,
I do.
If we really want African countries to be making semifinals and whatever, then Don't just have national teams in Europe with 3 or 4 players from Africa. Don't make it so easy to make it a club team. It's no longer a club team. And what I'm saying is this: if I was Congolese, I'd be very upset that those 9 players are playing for European teams.
No, 100%. And it takes out the beauty of the World Cup that I've loved for so many years, which is the cultural aspect of the game. It'd be interesting if they made the rules a little bit tighter for that.
I think so. And let me say one more thing. I agree. This will sound bad, because here's what's tough about the World Cup. You know, a lot of my opinions. I cannot say a lot of things, but we want to be truthful in this and let everybody knows who's ever participated in one of our events how much we love soccer and how much we love it and how much we love culture, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I said the most beautiful game I've ever seen, visually beautiful game I've ever seen, was in the 2018 World Cup. Nigeria played Iceland, and Iceland had a bunch of big, tall, white guys with maybe slightly red beards, but blonde hair, blonde beards. And Nigeria had a bunch of big black guys with bushy beards or whatever. And it was 11 against 11 like that. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And Nigeria won 1-0. Do you know what I mean? Now, don't get me wrong, naturalizing all that's great. But when a country literally has 9 of their 11 players aren't from their country, that's like the culture. I want the culture.
Yeah, if Pulisic went and played for Germany, yeah, we'd be upset, right?
Yeah. I want the culture.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, in the U.S., we benefit from getting a lot of people who don't live here because of our military guys who go all over the world.
100%.
So we're the benefactors of that in the U.S. But to be fair, that's also our culture in the U.S. is we're a melting pot. So
New world, let's say.
Yeah.
Being the Western Hemisphere, right?
Yeah.
Founded by Europeans and whatever in so many ways, whatever. But the New World is a melting pot. And originally the New World was what? Native Americans, Native Canadians, natives. And then they came over here. You know what I mean? And so then it became its own. But now every country is a melting pot. You know what I mean? And I think that's great. I think the thing that I have is when you're naturalizing somebody on the eve of tournaments in order to play for your country, that's frustrating. Now, for your country to be a melting pot, great.
Yeah. Totally.
But when you're literally on
the U.S., and the U.S. has done that. I remember Bruce Arena did that the last World Cup he coached, where he naturalized a left back from France like a month before the World Cup. And by the way, we played horribly. I was like, you've got a team you built up for 2 years. You're trying to get them to gel together. Yeah, Jeff Agoos as the left back, who wasn't a brilliant player, but he was part of the system, and he had moments. And that he actually changed the formation going into that World Cup like 2 weeks before. And we had a horrible. He had no. Whereas our current coach has built this system over 2 years. All right. Belgium versus Senegal. Senegal, again, these are third place teams playing against first or second place teams. And Belgium's always got a strong team. They're always very well organized. They've got a strong history of soccer. It's hard not to favor them. But to be fair, I haven't watched them play in this World Cup, and I haven't watched Senegal play. It should be an interesting game to watch.
I think the winner of that game plays the winner of the U.S.-Bosnia game.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. But Belgium, they've had something called the golden generation, their golden generation for the last 10 years, maybe 12, but 10 years, whatever. Belgium is way weaker than they've been lately. They have names that are old names, let's say, and new players coming up, let's say. But to me, that's a game that's hard to predict. I don't know if Senegal can stay structured. I think they can win that game, will win that game. Has been very fortunate. It's early on in the tournament. They've been very fortunate, to be honest, but they are past their prime. They're getting older. They benefit from what was a weak group with Iran and Egypt. And off the top of my head, I don't remember the third team. But anyway, so that's going to be a very even game, I think. If Senegal's structured and everything, I think in my little family pool, I said that Senegal's going to win that, and probably ugly is my guess. but that's just a prediction. But Belgium, I loved Belgium back in the 86 World Cup, the first World Cup I got to see them play. I probably can name all 11 starters from 40 years back still, because I fell in love with the Belgian team. And I knew it was a smaller country and they were fighting to stay in the World Cup. And they got to the semifinals before they ran into Maradona in Argentina. And that was it. So Senegal has Mane, disciplined, brilliant, experienced. When Senegal Morocco, when Senegal won the African Cup of Nations this last year, during this whole controversial moment where the team walked off the field, it was Mane who went back in the locker room, pulled the whole team back out to finish the game. So they have a great leader in Mane. And again, if they just stay disciplined and structured and don't fall asleep at the back, I think that Senegal could do it. Belgium's at a weak moment for them.
Gotcha. All right. So we got USA versus Bosnia and Herzegovina. Obviously, I talked a lot about the US. It's such a wait and see with the USA, right? Because we'd like to think what we're going to see with our starting 11 with the US is what we saw with Paraguay, the Paraguay game, who do they play after that? Australia. And they're playing another third place team, right? So we'd like to think that it makes all the sense in the world to favor them. I'm curious about what the strengths are of Bosnia and what their strategy might be. I'd imagine they're gonna play low pressure. They're gonna try and hang on to the game as long as they can. They're gonna try and be disruptive. The U.S., I think, has a chance to go in the back form and play in that Spanish Argentinian style that their coach is trying to get them to play in, that has had success getting them to play in. Can Pulisic to me we don't have an Mbappé, right? Pulisic skillful at the level close to Mbappé from a skillful perspective. My goodness, he's played in the UEFA Cup finals. He's played for German teams, Italian teams, EPL. He's been to the big show, right? Is he going to be too fragile? Is he going to get knocked? Is he going to get knocked out of the game or what? Because that's his problem, is he doesn't seem to be very durable. And if he could make it through the rest of the tournament, I think that's going to help. Then you have Weston McKennie. I heard a stat on him last night. He's the only player that's played every minute for the USA this World Cup. And he's a midfielder who runs and runs. And so you need to give him some credit there. Can he continue to do that? He's probably someone that should have gotten a break in that third game, but for some reason the coach looked Kenny and went, hey, apparently this guy can run forever. And you and I have known players like that can run forever. That's one of their strengths. I think totally. So maybe that's the type of player he is. But yeah, I think that if USA can come out and play their style, which by the way has been more consistent than England. They're more consistently scoring goals than England, as far as they're more consistently a goal-scoring threat than England from what I've seen this tournament. And if they can stay patient and stay composed, obviously they have a great chance. That's the whole thing. Are we going to see the U.S. consistently play? Have they built up to this level? What happens with a lot of teams when they're growing, which can be 3 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back. Yep. And the key is going to be, is this going to be a 1 step back for them? And maybe the last game was their 1 step back, even though it wasn't really. But yeah, for them, it's going to be consistency. But you want to say this whole thing about, we believe we can win. That's great. But that sounds like hope. That doesn't sound like I believe we can win if we keep playing the way we're playing. Not if we get lucky, but if we need a little luck, but we can keep playing the way we've played and we demonstrate we can get quickly organized on defense and not let in an easy goal. This should be, it should be a game where from beginning to end, they can dominate and they can take care of business, not play down to the level of the other team and stay focused. Like I said the other day, I think the fact that the USA lost that game to Turkey in the last few seconds was a brilliant coaching opportunity for the coach to come in and say, look, let's remember that, right? Because Pochettino I'm sure he's smart enough. He's going to know. If I know that's what he can say to the team,
Yeah.
hopefully he knows that's what he's going to say to the team. So I think and if he can clean things up on defense and improve the consistency of our defense, I think that's strong. But yeah, I don't know much about Bosnia. Maybe you do. What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
So I won't tell, but I can tell you the weirdest 6 degrees of separation story about Weston McKennie. I won't. You said the U.S. midfielder, but just a little bit of Bosnia. And I know very little about the team itself, whatever. But back before the Balkans War, when Yugoslavia split up into 7 pieces, pretty much, Bosnia being one of them. Yugoslavia used to be known as the Brazil of Europe because they were so technical and beautiful to watch. So Bosnia was one of the parts of former Yugoslavia, let's say.
With Croatia and Serbia and
Slovenia and Kosovo and Bosnia and Montenegro and Macedonia. Correct.
And I had the pleasure of playing with Edmund Rugova, who was a right forward for Yugoslavia, which, he was one of those guys. He was one of those guys who came over from Europe, and we heard, another guy has come over from Europe who played pro. Mm-hmm. And he was like 33 years old, so he was on the end of his career. He actually came to the country to play for the New York Cosmos the last year of the NASL. And the league folded right when he got here. So he ended up in the MISL, the Indoor Professional Soccer League, which at the time was the best league. And then when he kind of retired from that, I was in my early 20s. He was one of the guys I played with. We were like, holy crap, this guy's not a poser from Europe who played pro soccer. He's toying with everyone on the field. And he's 33 years old, and he's smoking cigarettes before the game and drinking coffee. Anyway, so yeah, I've respect for that whole part of the country. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, all I'd say is
the whole part of the world, rather. Yeah.
Bosnia is a very small nation, and athletically, they're not going to be better than the United States. They're going to be structured, very disciplined, and organized, and they're going to have to, it's going to be a closer version, but a bit of a Sweden-France thing where overall they're going to be out athleticized, but technically they're very good and true professionals. But I expect it's going to be on top of Bosnia. The U.S. will be on top of Bosnia. Again, it sounds funny, but if it's an open venue, it could be a good thing for the United States, if that makes sense. But if it's a night game, then that cools it down a little bit too. I expect the U.S. to win that game. But if Bosnia takes a 1-0 lead, going to be a nightmare. The one thing I would say that the U.S. cannot do, though, is try to force the ball into Pulisic. And what I mean is the U.S. has won the game, and the U.S. will only win games, and will only win games super holistically. And South American teams, Latino teams can do this. If they wait too long to get the ball to other people, they try to force it in. Again, if you please go and watch 10 minutes of Brazil-Japan the first half, then watch 10 minutes of the second half, Brazil-Japan. First half, Douglas Santos, Brazil's left back, was standing out wide on the line, waiting for the ball. As Vinicius Jr. pushed in 15 yards into they would call it left central channel, and we forced some balls into him. And there's 3 or 4 guys Brazil's forcing the ball into. And in the second half, Brazil got in right around 30 crosses. And what they did is, I don't care who you are. If you're open, you're getting the ball. That's how it should be. And so Brazil bogged themselves down by trying to force it into the Vinicius Jr. And part of Japan's plan is Vinicius Jr. It's not Douglas Santos. Nobody knows him. You know what I mean? At that level, nobody knows him. You know what I mean? And so I think that the U.S. half of the time, then, if I see that you're going to bypass the best player to give it to your no-name left back, now I'm in trouble. Because principles of play, none of them are force it into your best player. Principles of player, get it wide to the open guy. If the U.S. avoids that, and they don't try to force it into 1 or 2 main guys, Bosnia's in a lot of trouble. That's just a fact. Because Bosnia is going to look a lot like Japan and Brazil did in a way, where one team's Paraguay and Germany. And it sounds rude. Bosnians will say that's not true, but that is true. They're going to be pushed back. Can they play with the ball? Yes. But you know what? When you win the ball, you need an outlet. And what I'm saying is their outlet's going to get pushed back. And suddenly that outlet is only 10, 12 yards up the field. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think what I like about Pochettino is he's a pragmatist. He is a professional. Jurgen Klinsmann came in. He's a flashy guy, and he's got a strong personality. And I'm going to come in. And Mauricio has been on point for 2 years, trying to get the team to play the way. I think he's going to sit them down and go, look, you guys have just played impressively. This hasn't been a passion play. We got to have heart. We got to have passion. We got to have desire. This hasn't been a passion play. This hasn't been a luck play. You're a good team. So go out there and know you're a good team. Know you're a professional. Know you're all these things, because he has a higher expectation from those guys, I think, that believe in themselves like they are EPL players.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the U.S. needs. They need someone to come in and babysit them and coddle them. And, we're trying to find good players that are hidden on the streets of Philadelphia or whatever. He's like, we got good players. Let's make them a good team. I'm very happy with our leader. Yeah, he's Captain Kirk.
Correct.
He's going to go in, or maybe better than that, Picard.
Spock.
Because Captain Kirk can be a little emotional. He's
Spock.
Luke Picard. Not
Yeah.
quite Spock, because Spock had too much of the logic, not enough of the heart. He needed the hard side. But yeah, now I'm doing a Trekkie thing, right? But I think that he's going to be a strong leader. And he's not an Andy Reid, but he's not a Belichick. Maybe that's a way to put it.
Correct.
He's not going to be a complete hard ass by Belichick, but he's going to be.
But he's not Darth Vader.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm excited about that game. I'll be watching it. And anyway, so hopefully, hopefully tomorrow will be an interesting conversation, more interesting than today as far as the game to play. And it's going to get more interesting as it becomes not the first against the third or the second against the third, but the teams that go through. This is going to be even more and more exciting, and that's part of the cup. And you and I both, I know what you said about England. Yeah, I have English friends. I don't want to break their hearts, but if England gets knocked out or beat up, I love the fact that those teams are going to overtime and getting worn out, because that bodes better for the teams that we want to win. We're not hating on them, but if England lose, that makes it easier path for Brazil and the USA. Right?
Correct. 100%. 100%.
So that's our prejudice. It's that we want the path to be as easy as possible for our teams to get to the championship.
If you want to win, don't you want to be the best? Nope. I'd like all the best knocked out.
Right, exactly.
We're playing the Scouts of America. That sounds great.
All right, brother. Love you. It's been good talking to you. I've had fun. We went too long today, but because I know we got stuff to do. You got a family vacation and all that coming up. I got a busy day. Super busy days. So I'm hoping to kind of watch some of these games, watch all the games in the background, but I blocked out the USA game. In fact, Crystal and I were going to go to the gym. We usually go to the gym about 4:30 or 5:30. I'm like, nope, we're not going to the gym today. We're at 4:00. We'll go after the game.
That's funny.
And if we win, I'll have a better workout because I'll be motivated. If we lose, I'll probably be like, okay.
I know. Difference in pace on the treadmill between if you win and if you lose.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Zico. Nice talking to you, brother. Yeah. Cheers. Bye.